It's great to be here in the company of so many good solution-focused friends during this conference. I'm looking forward to listen to all the stories that will be shared about solution focus. And as I was preparing this, I was struck by the fact that so many people for so long want to talk about solution focus. It's like that we want to talk about the dear friend that we have. Yeah. And it's a dear friend because he's such an interesting, or it is such an interesting friend, I should say. And also because what we do with solution focus is so extraordinary and so exciting. I think that everybody can agree on that. And also because, as in good friendships, spending time with that friend also changes you. And I can imagine that everybody also experienced how solution focus has changed what you do, how you do it, and much more maybe. We are about to embark on a 24-hour storytelling about solution focus, and there will be many versions shared here in the, what was it, 90 plus sessions or 90 plus presenters that are going to speak. And that reminded me this morning of the article of Gale Miller and Steve Shazer, Solution Focus as a Rumor. And I reread it this afternoon. And they write, solution focused therapy is a series of stories that members of diverse communities tell each other. And as the stories pass through these communities and are shared from one person to another, they become polished, transformed, reinforced. And Steve DeShazer and Gale Miller insist there is not one straight or right story about solution focus. And therefore, Steve also did not want to offer his definitive story of what solution focus is all about. And his wish was explicitly to, and I quote again, to keep the rumor of solution focus alive by allowing people to share their versions of it and learning from them. And that is how a community learns. That is how an approach continues to develop, and that is what keeps solution focus alive. But they've written this article also with an invitation to think about how we talk about solution focus. And they share two versions. And the first one, or the first way to talk about solution focus, is actually the one that Steve DeShazer preferred, and I think many of us. And that is talking about what we do when we do solution focus. It's talking about, or it's given a description of what solution focus looks like. And that's, of course, inspired by Ludwig Wittgenstein, who invites us to describe, not to explain. And it puts the focus on what therapists and clients do together. And that is very specific in solution focus. It's what therapists and clients do together, therapists or coaches or whatever you. And quoting again, he says, solution focus is an interactional event made of such ordinary activities as asking and answering questions, commenting on statements, etc. The advantage of showing what we do or showing what happens in a solution-focused conversation has a great advantage. And the advantage is it steers us away from using big words, overgeneralizing our practice, and giving $1 million or offering $1 million statements, whereas we should offer $5 descriptions of our practice. And what we see when we look at these descriptions of solution focus, we see people talking with their clients. We see people not talking about their clients. We see people talking themselves into their solutions. We see people asking questions about what's wanted, how that looks like, what is wanted, what is already working, what are the resources that are already available, etc., etc. So we see the practice, and we see how when a person comes with a story, by gently asking these questions, the story changes and shifts, offering more possibilities, new hope, and new steps that these people can take. And it is through these conversations and the descriptions of them that we discover what solution focus actually does or brings. We discover that change is happening all the time, that there are always precursors to the solution and exceptions to the problem. We understand statements like that our clients are resilient and that solutions don't care about the origins of the problem or the causes. We realize that words are effectively magic and that small steps can make a big difference. And so all these conclusions, what we sometimes call assumptions of the model, they come from the practice of doing solution focus. It's something that we realize as we do solution focus. The doing of solution focus was not distilled from these assumptions, but it is something that became clear as we do solution focus. I think that's an important point to make. So that is one way of talking about solution focus that makes sense. Or talking about solution focus to describe what we do, but there's also another way, and it's a more tricky way. And it's talking about what solution focus is, why it works, and why we do what we do in solution focus work. This is challenging because we might end up using old ways of thinking to describe this new practice. Steve, I quote Steve again, answering the question, what is it, is not always so easily done as we sometimes assume. To remind you, through our practice, we entered in a new way of thinking. We discovered new ways of thinking about what happens in therapy and what happens with our client, and especially in the conversations. We went away from the traditional way of thinking about and doing therapy, where we categorize the client's problems into mental illnesses, where these classifications are made of clients and their problems, where we have theories that explain the client's problems and strategies for solving these problems based on these theories, the old expert model. Of course, that way of thinking assumes that clients' lives are stable, problem saturated, and change must involve outside intervention from the expert. This way of thinking is still very much present in a lot of therapy, a lot of psychology, and a lot of psychiatry, even up until this day. Also in the 80s, of course, but still now. And we need to be careful not to fall into that old way of thinking. It would be very awkward and unfitting to use that classic way of thinking to talk about solution focus. To use that old epistemology where we talk about an object that has been studied by the subject, and the object can be a person, family, and organization, where this examination has no effect on the object itself that we study, where it is possible to explain what is going on by identifying underlying causes and what we can do to fix it. So we must steer away from that old way of thinking to talk about solution focus. And the new way of thinking is what Steve refers to, and what we can call a postmodern view or a postmodern way of thinking. Steve and Gale say it is important always to keep in mind that our version of the solution-focused therapy rumor involves entering into postmodernism. I like the fact that they say our version of solution-focused therapy, but it's a strong invitation, I think, to make sure that how we talk about solution focus also fits with the model, how we look at clients and change and stuff like that. So, to conclude, let's enjoy the many rumors during this conference, enjoy the different takes, learn from them, May they challenge or strengthen your version of solution focus, but also let's stay vigilant. I think we all have a duty towards our good friend, solution focus. Speak up if what you hear does not fit. Just don't be a bystander and engage in nice conversations. And that's what I wanted to say at the opening of this conference. Thank you, Kathy.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I just would like to allow you to see us all who will still here. Thank you, Anton.
I did it. Off to the next sessions, Kathy.
Yes, and thank you for staying with us. Huh?
Yeah.
Thanks a
Thank you,
million.
Fran.